But he told me that, and I couldn't believe
Wow.
it. I'm like, really, my podcast did that? And like, yeah, that's why I'm paying for your meal.
Wow.
भाई, इतने से काम नहीं चलेगा. On today's episode, we are featuring Serena Walia, who is an Indian film and stage actor. As a theatre artist, she has worked on experimental productions and toured all over the country with them. She made her feature film debut in 2019, playing the protagonist in Kumar Rituraj's sci-fi drama Khudbudi. Her short film, The Song We Sang, has traveled to prestigious film festivals including International Film Festival of South Asia, won the Best Indian Narrative Short at Kashish Film Festival, and the Audience Choice Award at Dharamshala International Film Festival. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the exciting journey of Serena Walia. Hi, Serena. How are you? It's been so long since we last
Hi.
spoke.
I know, right? I've been good. I have been really coping with what is happening, and I have also been making the most of things. But I'm so excited to be here. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And now you've always been an actor par excellence, but now it's like the world has woken up to your talent and you're going places. And I feel great because, I still remember that Shamak's dance classes when we used to dance in the same line. And,
Absolutely.
and now see
Oh
how
my!
far you
No,
have come.
you are too kind. But I'm also really grateful to have shared that journey with you because I remember you also as a really dedicated artist, and I'm pretty sure that you're like as dedicated to what you do.
I
So.
hope so. Some people say I am. Some people think I'm just a lazy bum. So yeah, it's mixed opinion at this point. Uh, Great. So what's your origin story? How did you get interested in acting? How did that happen?
Okay. So for me, I when I was growing up, I grew up. My dad was in the army. I grew up all over. So I was pushed into elocution, recitation, dramatics, and I never made much of it. I just thought, okay, I'm going to become an investment banker when I grow up. So I think acting happened to me really late. When I realized when I wasn't doing what I loved doing, that's when I used to pray for something to call out to me, something to, say, uh, show me who I am again. So that's when acting found me. Yeah.
That's interesting. That's almost like, a Hindi movie script where you are like asking for God for a sign that, dear God, please give me an indication. Is this what I'm meant to do or not? And God says, no, bacha, you're meant for acting. Stop all the business and investment stuff. Work on acting. Uh,
But that's kind of what happened.
yeah. And I,
Yeah.
I find that very fascinating because, there's one thing, like what I've seen is that some people knew from a very early age that okay, this is what I'm supposed to do and this is what I like doing, and they just pursue that. And then there's another set of people who are doing completely opposite, like things that has got nothing to do with acting whatsoever, and then they still somehow find their way into the industry. Like, of course, you would know how many engineers are writers in the industry, and so that will give you an
Yeah.
idea. So like how, it's like engineering has got nothing to do
Absolutely.
with media or acting or performing arts, but still it continues to attract
Right.
that pool. um right, okay, so of
But
course,
I love that. Yeah.
yeah, I think so.
You
that's
go.
that's a good thing, right? Like, I mean, the industry is open to everyone, it welcomes everyone, it doesn't, I mean, of course, yeah, there are issues,
Absolutely.
but it just like
You just need
welcomes
to have that in
everybody.
your heart. Yeah. As
Yeah,
long as you have that desire, I feel it is open to everybody. And it is also, as long as you keep that in front of you, I think there is nothing else that can probably, leave you all, feeling, like you can't find your way when once you face a mountain. Like you will find your way if you hold that in front of you, I think, no matter which background you're coming from. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And I learned very hard in a very hard way that acting is not easy because I was just pushed in front of camera and forced to act, and that's when, I realized, oh, okay,
How was
poor.
your experience?
Not good in this because I'm not a trained actor, so for the most part I was struggling. But I'll get into that
Yeah,
story
yeah,
later of how that happened. Uh,
sure.
Now, of course, you have charted a long journey of like reaching at this point. What are some of the challenges that you faced being a female actor in India? I'm sure like there are a lot of layers to that, but in particular, like as a female and as an actor, what were some of the challenges that you felt were unique to you that probably is not the case for male actors or like other people per se?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a good question. I felt that the Me Too movement really helped us, women. I mean, before that, we would have to dodge questions every other day. And I think the movement came at a time where it just reformed everything. It changed the equation in the rehearsal space. And men would be uncomfortable even, saying something about how you look, and they will be careful. And I really appreciate that. And I'm grateful to all the women who did what they did and brought us to this place where we feel safer in our work environments now. So that's something that I feel good about. I still have to dodge certain things that happen, but it's way lesser. The frequency is way lesser as a woman. The second thing is, how women based scripts are not really written. If women characters are written, they are written from a very male perspective. Like they will be the love interest, or they will be the mother, or I genuinely believe that my life as a woman is way more than what I mean to a man. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I have other adventures, and I do see some scripts coming up that are exciting, but I hope to find them. I hope I can lay my hands on them someday. Yeah, so that's
Right.
something I deal with. I see often.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, yes, Me Too movement, of course, it began here in the US and found its way in India. And I mean, of course, everybody knew these things were happening, but because the industry structured the way it is, nobody had the courage to come forward and share these instances. And once it happened, it kind of like, it's like females, like especially within this industry, found that collective voice. And I just felt that, okay, this was a shift that needed to happen, because if you do something that is inappropriate in a corporate workplace, there is a due process and there are legal implications. But in an industry like filmmaking or media, sometimes people are able to dodge that, because for variety of reasons. Sometimes they don't have supportive peers, sometimes you don't have resources to put up a legal battle, things like that. So yeah, I'm so glad that it happened and everybody kind of united in that movement to share their voice. Uh, a lot of people say this, both, I mean, here in the US and in India, that up until now, female oriented scripts were not written because they are not, like, they do not command the same level of audience as perhaps a big male superstar would have. And so it's a risk that a producer is putting forth, in the sense that, okay, if I put my money behind like a female lead character and the stories around her, I'm not sure if I'll be able to make my money back. Whereas, like, for a big male superstar,
That
it's like,
is true.
okay, it will, guarantee me certain numbers, okay, and beyond that, everything is a bonus. Now, of course, with movies like, Wonder Woman and, Nomadland, of course, the one that won Oscar a couple of days back,
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
shift is more visible that,
Even
okay,
Queen's Gambit as a series.
yeah, it's a lot of way it sort of revived that interest in chess. Like, who knew that a Netflix series could
Absolutely.
spark that interest in a game that is so complex and so
Yeah,
strategic in nature. uh, so it's that, but now that shift has happened to a greater extent. Here you see movies like Wonder Woman and they doing big numbers like 700, 800 million. No, yeah, 700, 800 million dollars. And so uh, what do you think would take for like that kind of shift to happen in India, where, like, a female driven narrative written by females brings in equal number, like comparable, of course it's a long process, but comparable numbers to male counterparts.
I personally feel it doesn't have to be written by a female to be about a female. I also think that it has to be well written to be well received. So I think it's all in the writing. So for a film to find a good producer, the content has to be good, and I believe that the world has to be so self sufficient that you don't really question it,
Right.
that the story is a world in itself. And I feel that for people to develop something like that, I think what it requires is just an understanding that there are people around who are a little different from you, maybe gender wise,
Yeah.
who might have like maybe just 50% of us, but it's okay to take notice now after a zillion years. But it's okay. And I feel like yes, it will be nice if there are good well written stories that come out.
Yeah. Yeah, I think also in writing circles, especially, sometimes in like more patriarchal industry, it's sort of, it's not meaningful script when it's written by a male, because a lot of challenges that females go through, for them it's an outsider's perspective. They don't understand it from their personal experience by virtue of being a
Hmm.
man. And so I feel, yeah,
Right.
so that's where I was coming from, in the sense that, okay, to build in more authenticity, to build in more complexity of
True.
what a woman faces in terms of like how the society functions or whatever the goal of
Right.
the story is, that is, I found a bit more authentic when it comes from that. So of course nobody should restrict themselves. I have written stories about women, but I always sort of validate it from another female, that okay, if this is a situation you are put in, or in general females are put in, what is the response? Like, is this a likely scenario in real life, or is it more like what guys think that girls do?
Right.
But yeah, I'm glad
Yeah,
that
yeah. Fair enough.
gradually,
That's actually a good practice.
yeah, and so gradually that shift is happening. But I feel like female driven narratives created by female would sort of like boost it up a little bit. So yeah, I mean, India has fortunately a lot of good female filmmakers, Zoya Akhtar and
I've actually been lucky.
yeah,
Yeah. I've been lucky to work with two people. Actually, the two projects that I've done, one short film and one feature film, have both been female driven. And
yeah,
yeah, and I've been one has been written by a man, and one has been written and directed by a woman. Both are very different flavor wise, and I do agree, with the fact that yes, a woman has a complete understanding. But I, in the recent past, have read scripts by friends who are men who have done justice to the mind of a woman. To have gone deep inside and thought, "Acha, this is what she would do," you know and I really do like respect the research that goes behind, like you say that you take your time to ask somebody if this is how somebody would react, and I really respect that, because that is what you would do for somebody else. You are trying to understand.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, I find the whole process of writing characters very fascinating, very therapeutic, because it just like opens up your mind to so many scenarios, so many possibilities. It's my favorite thing to
True.
do when I'm not doing podcasts or like directing and stuff like that. But okay,
Really.
yeah, yeah. I can't tell you how many you know synopsis, like one page synopsis I have written, like completed from beginning to end, at least six if I have to tell
Okay.
you right now. So I just write
Wow.
synopsis, and then I think, would this be good for an audio drama, like fictional audio storytelling? Would this be
Right.
good for a short film, or should we do think of it more as a TV series or a feature film? So I try to pick up an idea, like the core idea, and then try to think what would be
True.
the best format
True.
for it. So yeah,
Right.
it's my favorite thing to do. I just love thinking, cooking things in my brain and then putting it on paper.
Same here. Actually, I have a blog on Instagram where it's like a secret account where I blog about movies and characters that I loved watching. and I break down the craft. Yeah, I actually break it down and I write about it. And there are hardly any people that follow me there because I have, maintained an alias, and I don't keep reveal my real name over there. But I
Okay.
love writing freely about, what I watch, like the people I know, because sometimes I'm writing about my friends' performances. I don't want them to know that I've written all that. So I break it down sometimes. And yeah, I also love it. I love writing about characters and observing how and when, you see what you see and how that shape of a character, the feel was formed.
Okay, I know who I'm jamming with for an upcoming film that I want to direct. So you can share that secret account with me so I can, like,
I'll do that. I'll do
pick
that.
up some tips and then have some discussion points. Uh,
Absolutely.
but okay, speaking of characters, what's your process of developing characters? Is it completely driven by script, or do you try to bring in elements from your experiences and your observation as well?
So that's a great question. I like to start with the script because I do not want to influence what I've been thinking about and how I've been preparing all my life. Otherwise, I'd just be repeating myself. So I like, the new words to offer me something new, to take me in a different direction. And once I have the given circumstances, I think about, what the actor or the character says about himself or herself, and what other people say about the character, what the character does, and why the character would be doing such a thing, the subtext behind it, derived only from the given circumstances. So I find all of that very fascinating. There are times I like to look at characterization in a different way. Like, what would I see? What would I like to see this person as? What is the physicality of that person? The rhythm that this person's body follows. And the rhythm of speech. Like I just said, rhythm, this person's body. Like the
Yeah.
speech, this is prosody. So for me, accent and dialects and idiolects are very interesting. I have been studying them. I've taken this time actually. I've made the most of my lockdown. I've done a course from this institute I was dreaming about. I thought I'll go there and I'll do it. But I've actually, they made it available online and I've been able to do it. So I'm really happy about that. I can now notate sound and do proper accent breakdowns. So yeah.
That's great. Yeah, yeah. You know, I try to imitate accents, but for the most part, I fail miserably because, of course, I try to, recreate what I listen, but it's hard because sometimes you don't know how certain words are pronounced, and so it comes out
Yeah,
differently. So, I try
absolutely.
Australian accent from time to time. I have a lot of Aussie friends. So it's like, "Oi, mate, how's it going, eh?" Sometimes it comes out good.
That's so
Sometimes it's
interesting.
so bad. My friends are
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
"Don't try it," uh, or maybe practice it a little bit more.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it's fun. Like, I love
Yeah.
playing around with accents. Okay.
Even creating characters that way, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's another thing that I do. Before I get into a particular writing exercise, I just look at people who are walking down the street and just imagine their backstory of, like, what events would have happened for them to end up at this place in
Do
this
that.
moment where I saw them. So, like, did
Hmm.
they have fight with their wife or their husband, or are they having a bad day at work? Uh, and I would imagine, like, the darkest of things with simplest of people, where I would think that, okay, this guy looks very nice and safe right now. He might be murdering people in the night. Who knows? So so that's a story, right?
What
Like,
fun.
yeah, someone who's like so common, so normal, that blends into the society, but he's a monster. Like, once the night comes around, he's
Yeah,
like, going around murdering people. And like, after
that's
watching so
fascinating.
many so many true crime documentaries on Netflix, I'm convinced that I've actually crossed paths with so many people that I know would have, done those horrible
Really?
things. I think, I don't know, of course, I don't have evidence,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I
yeah.
think I could, like, see sometimes that in people, that, okay, they have like a dark side and I don't know what do they do with it. But
Right,
yeah,
right.
so it's that. uh okay, so now
Interesting.
you've been part of the industry for a long time, and you have done theater, you have done commercials, you have done movies, you've done web series, yeah, you name it and you've done it. So now I sort of want to get your perspective on, like, what's one thing that you feel needs to change about the Indian film industry for it to go on a next level. Like, yeah, one thing as we spoke about is like, more female driven narratives. But apart from that, what do you think is like,
Absolutely.
needs to change?
Okay. One thing that I think could change is the fact that if we all experimented, like I was listening to actors from The Crown speak about their work, and I like the fact that actors in London, they just experiment a lot in the writing room, or even as they're reading the script, the writing changes, or like somebody realizes that something could be played differently, and everybody experiments. The shot changes, because one person thought of it. So I like that fluidity. Sometimes it's not possible all the time because you have a schedule and you have to maintain it. I do understand. But I also wish for some sort of experimentation to seep in. Those kind of actors to be hired who can experiment in that way, you know. And so I do believe that, yes, commerce is important. The commercial side of things is extremely important. How it will sell is completely important. But at the same time, somewhere if we can find like a mix of experimentation and commerce, somewhere, that is a change I would like to experience. I would like to be on such sets where people are open to new ideas, bounce them off each other, maybe take a few, maybe like I would love to be in that sort of a room. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's, I mean, that's a different energy altogether. Like when you have people contributing and bouncing ideas off of each other, that's, I mean, so wonderful. Because you get to see like all the pieces of puzzle in front of you, and then you could determine different
yeah,
combinations. That okay, if I arrange these pieces this way, so like music, editing, acting, whatever, and then writing, all of it comes together. This is one version, one way to do it, and then if I combine it in some other way, this is how it would look like. And so I think that helps a lot. And I think there are certain directors that kind of have all the people on set in pre, like not on set but like in pre-production meetings. So editors and color graders and composers, they are there before like a single shot is done. I think Tarantino does that, where he brings everyone together with when he like writes this whole thing as a novel. He doesn't use screenplay format. Like his scripts are written like novels, like chapter
yeah.
1, chapter 2. Yeah, I
Wow.
find that very fascinating. Like he doesn't follow that typical, interior day, this location, this character. He doesn't follow that typical. He just writes the story. Like this is the character, this is what he does.
Okay.
He just writes it that way. And then he leaves it up to people that okay, you are cinematographer, you figure out how do you want to shoot it. Okay. And then he would say that okay, these are the things that I need that are non-negotiable. But
Hmm.
then otherwise I think
Hmm.
he's pretty flexible, and which is what I love, because he gets the full picture up front of what he's getting into. And that's why I think he takes that much time to make a movie, where it's like 3 or 4 years between one movie that he takes. And it's just like this whole process of seeing where things are
Yeah.
going. So that, I think, yeah, that's really wonderful. So, what was one piece of content, and it could be film, TV series, short film, anything that you saw and you felt like, oh, this is really experimentative, and this is something that I wish to do or be part of something like this in future, that really got you excited?
It really got me excited. Uh, okay, so I loved how Bohemian Rhapsody was made. I was watching Rami Malek talk about his work, and I realized the kind of experimentation that went into it, and how he worked. So he worked with a dialect coach that I'm aware of, in touch with. So I'm really excited that I'm on the right track. so, so that is something that he did. And then I realized that he was looking for a choreographer because he saw that the queen, like and this guy, he had moves, yeah, like a certain sort of body language that he wanted to replicate. And I he went to a choreographer first, and then realized it was not choreography he needed. He didn't need fixed steps. He just needed how to understand what this person is doing, certain gestures, certain tiny movements that are very specific to him. So he went to a movement choreographer. So I love the kind of experimentation that they did. So he did a move. He shows you in the interview with Ellen, he shows you that the movement director says, imagine that there is like a water droplet, trickling behind your back. So he stands like this. He's like, okay. And imagine you're a giraffe. He stands like that. Okay. And he's like, now serve me spaghetti. He goes, so, and that becomes the body language of the person on stage, and that is just beautiful to see, because that is how he was able to crack, and that was experimental in its own way, and how he arrived at the character along with the help of the best team possible, I think, was something to be inspired by.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's yeah. I mean, Rami Malek's portrayal of Freddie Mercury was yeah something. There were moments where I forgot that this is another person. Like he did it so well, especially
Beautiful.
during the climax when they do the concert, the charity concert.
Yeah,
He has completely nailed Freddie Mercury.
absolutely.
Everything from like lip movements to little twitches in the body that he does when he holds the mic and the stand. Yeah. So I remember I watched him in this very small role that he did in Night at the Museum, like like the second Night at the Museum movie, with Ben
Okay.
Stiller and I'm forgetting the other actor's name. Ben Stiller and one more actor, very legendary. It is shameful that I forgot
Okay.
his name.
It's okay.
But he played like King Tutankhamun, like, who comes alive in the night for like brief moments in the film. And then you see him in Mr. Robot. And then when you see him, playing Freddie Mercury, and now he's a Bond villain. So it's like such a tectonic
Beautiful
shift.
journey, right?
Yeah, yeah. And so it's
Yeah.
really inspiring how far he has come in sort of his journey. And yeah, I mean, you're on the right track as well. So if you are working with a dialect coach and you're doing these things, you will eventually get there. And hopefully you'll include me in your Oscar acceptance speech. That there was this one
That's so
guy
sweet.
who was like
So
a
sweet.
friend that I have. uh,
So
uh,
sweet.
yeah. Okay.
I hope
So.
you. Yeah.
Um, so what's one piece of advice that you would give to aspiring actors? Something that they need to be aware of before they get into it, because you know, get becoming an actor, especially in India, could be a very brutal journey, and sometimes people plunge into it without knowing the full uh, picture. So yeah, what would be your advice to them?
My advice to them would be to remind yourself every day as to why you started. Every day, every goddamn day. Whether it is when you're working on set and things are tough for you, you never forget the love. You're probably there for the love of it. And, there might be days when, money isn't coming in, but then the love is, help you sail through. And then there'll be days, where, you find what you're doing, you're in the flow. Just remember that, keep them as bookmarks in your head, you know and that's all I would like to share, that like, never forget why you started, I guess. Like, keep your why in front of you, and keep, whatever little dream you have, or massive dream you have, in front of you. So that it keeps inspiring you, so that, um, you know your voice is the most important thing. Your dream is the most important thing, and it's not crowded. You're like, you don't lose that.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's so beautifully said, because the rejection in this industry is so brutal that people will talk down to you sometimes on a daily basis, and so it's easy to lose the sight of what you're capable of, because one person's opinion differs from what you think you're capable of. And sometimes
Yeah.
it could be genuine, but sometimes it's just an outburst of something else that the person could be facing. And
Yeah.
a lot of people take that as like this ultimatum for their skill set, which of course should not be the case. But yeah, I think having that north star in front of you of like why you began, I think that's something that keeps people going. And and I have this theory. And I mean, I'm a pretty rational guy. I believe in like facts and research and methodologies and very structured way of doing things. But sometimes, the universe aligns in such a way that things that you're looking for, would just randomly happen. Like you would least expect it, but it would just happen, and there is no
Absolutely.
logical explanation to it. But when it happens, it gives you this new boost that you didn't think you had. So like just a couple of days back, I was
Yeah.
working on this financial model. So like that's another side of me, that okay, there's one creative side of it, and then there's like super analytical. And you would know, you've worked in finance, so I was building this financial model, and then it's just like I was just struggling because it was so frustrating. They had laid it out on Windows terminal, and then I'm working on Mac, so a lot of shortcuts doesn't work, a lot of things on keyboard are not the same. I was getting frustrated that why is this like so difficult. I know this, but why am I
Right.
forcing myself to do all these things? And then I just get this random text from a friend in China. She's saying that, hey, I was just reading a book, and I thought of you. You're doing great, and I think big things are waiting for you. And it's just completely random. Yeah, I woke up this
Oh,
morning and I'm like, oh
sweet.
hey, it isn't that bad, like so I'll get through it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I've had those moments when I've made the transition from finance to media. And of course I
Right.
underestimated it at first. I didn't respect the art form and the industry. I'm like, okay, it's just like putting stuff on camera. How hard could it be? Unless I made my first short film, which didn't turn out to be great, of course. But I realized I learned a lot. I'm like, okay, I need to respect the art form and the people who dedicate themselves to this thing. And that's when sort of I gradually learned little bit things along the way. Okay, so
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing.
yeah, I've given tried to give up so many times. I'm like, okay, this is not working. Maybe I should go back to finance or banking, whatever. It's just I'll think of something else. This media thing is not working out for whatever reason. But then somebody would come around and say like, hey, this short film that you made 2 years back, I saw it and I really enjoy it. And when is your next film coming out? And sometimes that's all you need. I can't tell you how many times
Yeah.
it's just this like some appreciation that people have showed for like some work that I did in past, and that sort of rekindles my enthusiasm to do it again, right? I'm like, okay, who
That's,
knows in how many ways
yeah,
your work is touching people's lives. And not all of them will get
absolutely.
back to you, right? Some of
And
them will feel compelled to let you
yeah,
know that you're doing great, but not everybody will do that, even if they love it. So yeah, so i
yeah,
just i just think that okay, maybe it's doing some good in the world that I'm doing, and so I should keep doing it. And
absolutely.
I have one good story of like how one of my friends, one of my college seniors, got married because he was on this podcast.
Really? What?
Yeah, I'll tell you that
How?
story quickly. So what happened is that I have this friend who was 1 year senior in college in undergrad, and I was just looking for guests, like interesting people to have on this podcast. And I just felt, oh, he was like always intelligent, top of the class, doing great in his career. He certainly has a good story. So I invited him. He did the episode, and then when I was in India, so this is December of 2018, he told me that, hey, let's catch up and I'll pay for the meal. I'm like, okay, I mean, like, we can split, you don't need to pay me.
Yeah,
Like he wasn't that good a friend कि अच्छा तेरे को इतने टाइम बाद मिल रहा हूँ तो मैं तेरे को treat दे रहा हूँ. It's just someone I knew. Okay, so
yeah.
so I found it a bit puzzling that why is he saying that. So when I met him, there was a girl with him, and he said that okay, when we did the interview, I was going through this personal crisis. I wanted to get married to her, but of course her elder sister, who is closer to our age group, she didn't approve of me. So like he lost hope that maybe parents won't understand. Um, so but because he was so candid on the podcast, the interview, uh, he told, like the parents, that hey, before I meet you next week, could you just do me a favor and listen to this episode. So the entire family of 4 people sat and for 45 minutes just heard the entire episode. The
So
dad pulled out a notepad
cute.
and started making questions. I'm like, okay, अच्छा मतलब podcast सुनने बोल रहा है ना, I'll make notes, I'll ask follow-up questions. So then he went and met the parents. The interrogation lasted for 2 hours, and then at the end of it, the parents were happy, like, okay, we think that you are the perfect guy for our daughter, so you can get married. So I think he got married like a year back.
So sweet.
But he told me that, and I couldn't believe
Wow.
it. I'm like, really, my podcast did that? And like, yeah, that's why I'm paying for your meal.
Wow.
भाई इतने से काम नहीं चलेगा. I need like VIP treatment on your wedding and stuff. Of course, it happened in pandemic, so I couldn't attend. But uh,
Right,
yeah,
right.
so it's that. So
Wow.
yeah, that's one story
Never
that's
underestimate. Yeah.
still blows
The
my mind
power
that
you have.
something like that could happen, right? And so I'm
Yeah.
sure pretty much in a similar way what you are doing also is touching people's lives in a way that you might not see the impact of it, but it's there, it's out there. So yeah, I mean, I certainly I can see, like, how you have grown, and how you've been doing this wonderful project. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you so much. It's
All
really
right.
sweet of you.
So now this might be a bit of a loaded question, but what has been the most difficult decision of your life so far?
Difficult decision of my life so far. Okay. So, quitting my job to actually pursue what I'm now pursuing was the most difficult decision. I was working for Edelweiss Capital, and at a time where the economy wasn't that great, and I was, I, I remember thinking that this is not something I want to do. Like very quickly into my job, I realized it, but I just didn't know what I would like to do, and there were signs that the universe was providing me, but I was too. I just didn't know how to take action. So, I would never take sick leave, but I would always go watch a performance. Like there would be times I would start drawing a hand, picking me up, and putting me on stage. I just didn't know what I would like to do on stage. So there was no concrete thing, and I didn't have a plan when I quit. So when I quit, I told my family that I'm going to study CFA. That's why I need time. I literally paid last minute. Last minute, you're supposed to pay a lot. You end up paying a lot for the course. So I paid the entire amount. I said, I don't care. I know I'm supposed to do something on the stage. So I saw a choir on TV. They were
Hmm.
singing. And I thought, oh yeah, I want to do that. So I auditioned for them. I joined the choir. I sang for 3 months in the biggest theater in Mumbai, pop, jazz, and cabaret.
Wow,
Wearing a tutu, like a Cinderella, like
I
yeah,
didn't know
dress.
that.
Yes, so I did that. And then I realized this wasn't for me. There was something guiding me. There was a guiding factor. So something said try acting. There were people I met. There were plays I watched called Aao Saathi Sapna Dekhe. So and that made me want to be a part of that world. And I remember weeping, thinking, how do I get this? How do I get to be that happy? You know, and it just happened. People created a part for me in the same play, and I ended up singing the same songs. So I don't know. I think that was the hardest decision because I think my parents were, like to come to terms with the fact that I was not doing what they wanted me to do. Initially, it was a bit hard. They would always tell everybody that she's on a sabbatical, she's going to come back and she's going to do her real job later. So that was a bit hard, but now they're very supportive. But at that point, it was a bit tough.
Yeah, yeah. I think for a lot of people, family sort of becomes that limiting factor. And
Hmm.
I mean, for me also that was the case, that okay, I didn't tell them first that I'm studying at Harvard, but then I'm trying to do filmmaking. My dad
Right.
would have thought that my kid has lost it, like, why are you spending so much money and learning this complex formulas, and like, and then like going out and shooting stuff. uh so it's that. But I yeah, it's like there's determination, so that's one thing, that you keep doing it. But you know what I've seen about you is that you've always kind of invested in trying to learn different aspects of becoming a true genuine performer, right? Like be it dancing or singing, or like all the dialect stuff that you're doing right now, right? And it shows. uh you
Yeah.
know whether you are dancing or you are acting, it just shows that okay, you have worked on this and that improvement is visible. And I think some people sort of stagnate along the way. But I think that's more due to, like, yeah, family not being supportive, or they not having financial resources. But I mean, must have been like, was it heartbreaking for your parents to discover that you paid for CFA but then never showed up for the exam, or never studied for studied for it?
Well, it wasn't heartbreaking, but they did feel like for the first time they'd been lied to.
Hmm.
So they just felt that. because I'd paid for it with my own money. So
Oh.
that time it wasn't a big deal, about the fact that I had paid for it or whether or not. And but it's just about the fact that I had lied to them, and I never lied in my life. I was always the good kid. I was always the kid who wouldn't create a ruckus. So for me to have my own voice or take a stand for myself was the hardest thing on the planet. So yes, they did feel a little bad, but I'm so glad. Like in hindsight, had I not done that, you know, I don't know what I would have been doing. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have survived in that world because you have to be a good fit culturally. Like how you are as a person, you bring that to the organization, right? I genuinely feel I wasn't a good fit.
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of times, like, society and people around you, and sometimes it's peer pressure also, right? And like, you see so many of your people around you, doing well in like the job that they always wanted to do. But what people don't realize is that what someone else always wished for their life might not be something that you are also looking for. Because I
Mm.
have a cousin who is just a couple of months elder to me. So now, of course, things have improved, but initially I would always be compared with him. Like, look at him, he's getting better grades in school, he's studying engineering. And so,
Yeah,
shouldn't you be doing that? And I did give it a shot. I went to Kota to study for IIT for a couple of months. I think the intent was to prepare for a couple of months and appear for IIT JEE, but I got so bored in 2 weeks that
mm.
I knew that engineering is not for me. Like, even if I become an engineer, I will be putting people at risk because I would go wrong somewhere or the other. So it's, and somehow,
It's
like,
good to be so self-aware.
so no, because the professor over there, he started with vectors, which is like a bit more advanced than trigonometry. Now I was struggling with trigonometry in school itself. तो मतलब भैया vectors तो कहाँ ही समझ में आने वाला है, right? तो so it's
Right.
always that's when I realized that bullet is not always straight. Like, there's a curve to the how bullet is fired, and then it
Yeah.
eventually falls down because of gravity. That's the only thing I learned in those 2 weeks. That a bullet सीधा नहीं जाता, it eventually falls down because of gravity, and so that's what you map in vectors. But the professor
Right.
would
Right.
always pick on me because I used to be nice kid कि अच्छा मैं आगे बैठता हूँ तो सब समझ में आएगा. And then the professor would be like, okay Alok, you say what will be the next step in this. तो सर पहले ही नहीं समझ आया तो बाद में मतलब क्या. तो I think he somehow, like, gave me this indirect indication that maybe this is not for you, because if you're struggling with this, then you are
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
going to struggle to get into any engineering institute. So that was a good thing.
Right.
But even with finance, I was like, okay, you know I used to make so much more money in finance, but I used to work very long, brutal hours because I was based in
Hours.
India, and I
Wow.
used to work in with New York team and London team and all of those things. So because of time difference, I have to do night shifts and things like that, and it paid really well. That was fun, but of course, I was so tired at the end of the day that I couldn't enjoy spending that money, right? And when I first did filmmaking,
Yeah.
like when I
Same
first
here.
tried to tell story, people told me that, hey, you have so much passion when you're talking these stories, like, why don't you go ahead and create something like this? And so once I began doing storytelling, that's when people sort of, like, it meant something to people. Like, yeah, people who work in finance, they do good stuff, but nobody cares if you are an investment banker, except like you are a investment banker at some other company. But if
Yeah.
you are a content creator, or if you do something that connects people, goes beyond, then I think
Mm.
it makes a larger impact. And if I would have worked in finance, my friend would, I don't know, would have been married with someone else. But the fact that I was
Yes.
part of somebody's journey that way, I think makes
Yeah. Yeah.
me
Yeah.
feel better. And so now people know me that, oh, you're a guy who does storytelling, you do podcasts, film, stuff like that. When I was doing
Right.
finance, nobody cared. Like, yeah, just another finance guy, what's new about him?
Yes.
So it's it's that. So okay, so since we are on the discussion of studying business and all of that stuff, uh,
Mm.
so you studied business in your undergrad, right? You went to Symbiosis,
Yeah.
which is a
Yeah.
pretty,
Yeah.
which is a very reputable name in terms of business education. Do you so what were the series of events that kind of led you to change, like, make a shift? So you spoke about, like, not feeling the fit with the industry, but do you think in a way that because you have a business education or you have that background somehow helps you being an actor or a performer in that sense? Does it come in handy sometimes?
So, having a business background, I feel it probably could help me. I mean, it helps me in the sense of, if I have to think of myself as a brand ever, with the kind of campaigns I wish to do, the ad campaigns I pick and choose for myself, I don't end up doing everything that comes my way. So that really helps me in that sense because, how do I see myself as a brand sometimes? That kind of knowledge does help me. But then apart from that, everything else was new. I was a fish out of water when I arrived here. I was terrible at my job. I learned everything on the job. And since I've had no formal training in this, I have tried to learn like a scavenger and I have been hungry for it. And I have not looked back. I have tried swimming in the deep end and I am happy to have made it without a float.
No, that's great, and I think that's something you should take pride in because not many people are able to survive that. And you bring up a very interesting point. So now, well, okay, so you didn't go to acting school. You just learned everything on the job and like picked up skills. Do you think acting schools are worth it? Like, do you think they really do make a difference, or is it something that if you just keep doing, you'll get better at it? Like, some cinematographers say that okay, you just need a camera. Your smartphone camera is good enough to get you started, and you can pick up the basic skills, and of course you can then keep upgrading. Do you think it's the same with the acting, or like does education make a difference?
Hmm. I feel there are two approaches. I would like to ask whoever is asking this question, like, to think what kind of an artist are you? What do you want your art to be about? So for me, when I was starting, I just wanted to be able to express myself fully as an artist. And by that, I mean not have any labels attached to me. By that, I mean not have any organization tell me this is what you ought to learn or this is what you should or should not do. So for me, that was very important because I realized that even when I was working with Edelweiss, after a BBA education, I mean, not all of my education came into play. I mean, I was still as lost as I would have been. So as grateful as I am to the institute, but I realized that I would have to learn everything on the job, and I would have to learn to navigate the real world, as it were. So I really value education. I teach myself. I'm doing the courses I want to do. So even now, I haven't stopped learning. So I don't say that I don't value education, but I feel like as an artist, like me, like I wouldn't want to, I wouldn't want to do like a formal thing, like throw myself into it for like 3 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think so. Some people that I know sort of say that okay, arts education is sort of this double-edged sword in the sense that okay, if you have no clue at all, that could be a good foundation for you to get started. But then there's also another whole discussion of like, do you really need to pay $100,000 to study at
Yes,
like
absolutely. And I was starting out at a time when I was with the best people in the theater circuit. And there was a very good theater actor that I went to and I asked, I was like, do you think I should get an education in theater? And she said, no, you're at the right place. If you continue to be here, you'll learn from the best. You needn't go to an institute. And at that point, I was doing all kinds of odd jobs. I was cleaning the rehearsal floor, I was making tea for people. And that's how I learned. Just by being around and doing these jobs, I learned everything that I thought was necessary for me to learn about the craft. So yes,
yeah.
I did not pay that kind of money, but I invested that kind of time. I had that kind of rigor to begin with because I really value the craft. I really, like you said, you have a deeper understanding of what media is all about now and you really respect it. So I try to approach it with that respect.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that's great. And I think, if you have that sort of focus and discipline towards anything, you'll figure out ways to, learn, even if you don't have the resources. Uh, yeah, I think what I feel is that, when you have an education that is rooted in arts, I think in a lot of ways it sort of restricts you because it gives you sort of this template, this sort of, boundary that, okay, this is how it's supposed to be done. Okay. And you do it that way. and
Yeah.
if you try to do anything beyond that, you're seen as, like, either a troublemaker, or it doesn't have a commercial value and things like that. For example, there are so many podcasts that are out there that is just, like, about something else. It's about people talking about, like, doing journalistic kind of podcasting, so like what New York Times does with the Daily, and a lot of other, like, the Guardian does that. And then there are other people who are hobbyists, like, they talk about, like, their passion, their journey, all of those things.
Mm.
So when I was trying to come up with a concept for, like, what different can we do for a relationship podcast, like, yes, we can have love stories, but I mean, that's been done million times. Like, how can we differentiate ourselves? So then I thought that, okay, how about we put two absolute strangers on a blind date on a podcast? Like, that's the first time you're just listening to their voice, you're not looking at their face. So all you have is their
Oh wow.
stories, their journeys, their personality, their communication skills to build an image, right? And so I felt like, yeah, that would be interesting. Like, I would want to go on a blind date where my safety is not an issue, but it's still a fun experience, right? So
Right, right.
yeah, so
How
logistically
has
it
that
was a
been?
nightmare. It did really well. It did, like, top 20 relationship podcast in so many places. It ended up on, like, Apple podcast charts.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So in India,
Wow.
it was in top 20
Congrats.
like podcast charts. Yeah, so it did really well. But I felt that, okay, had I, had that traditional radio background, or I had tried to, like, stick to the script, then I would have never thought of that idea. Because I'm an outsider and I don't mind breaking rules, I was able to execute that, right? And so that's why, like, it was an
Yes,
interesting
yes.
concept for participants, for listeners, that, hey, here are these two strangers from two different parts of the world. They've not seen each other, and this is the first interaction they are having, right? So wouldn't that be amazing to see, like, if the chemistry builds and if it leads to something? uh
Yeah.
so yeah, it's just I thought it's a good experience for listeners, it's a good experience for participants, and for me, it's a good experience as a producer. I'm like, yeah, I don't have to do anything, I just have to make sure audio levels are good and they can continue
That's
talking.
perfect.
So yeah, it cleared all the grounds that way. But so it was fun. But so there are a bit more technical question, if you like, because I'm really
Hmm.
enjoying this, I want to go a
Sure,
bit
sure.
deep.
Absolutely.
So, like, there are these different techniques of acting, like there is Meissner technique, and then there's one more. What are some of the other techniques? So there's Meissner.
There is
What?
Grotowski as well. I've done a
Yeah,
little bit of Grotowski. I've done a little bit of Meisner, and I right now I'm really enjoying Grotowski, the technique. I don't know, not many people know, but Stanislavski dedicated his last 10 years to his own technique with physical actions, only with
yeah,
physical actions, and Grotowski took his work forward. So he worked only with physical actions to access the subconscious also somewhere, to work in unison with that. So the actor is no longer thinking about what to do and just is being that thing that he's supposed to be. So I attended a workshop with a very good theater artist recently, and a participant and I have been trying to practice what we've learned. So sometimes it's just online. I leave her online and I practice my stuff. She analyzes, she makes her notes, and she gives me her notes. And sometimes we do that. So that is one technique I've really been enjoying. I have been a fan of Meisner as well because it gives you a lot of information about subtext, and I'm a big fan of that one word. So yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah,
It's hard to write subtext as a writer. I mean, like, I find it challenging to build in those, like, intrinsic elements that are not
yeah,
verbatim but has an impact on the story. That's hard. Two things I struggle to write: one is humor and one is subtext. And so I always try
really,
to, like, yeah, humor. I cannot write a comedy script. I can suggest ideas, I can come up with gags and
yeah,
situations, but I cannot build, like, a proper
yeah,
narrative from start to end. I'm very good at writing drama, I'm very good at writing romance. Uh, so yeah,
okay,
these two things I can nail, and I can combine in whatever way you want. So
yeah,
it could be a
yeah,
drama
yeah,
with,
yeah.
like, fun comedy elements, or it could be like out and out comedy with, like, some serious moments. So I can. That's
That's
one
nice. Everybody has
flexibility.
their strengths. Yeah.
Yeah, but so what's the difference between Stalinlowski and Meissner technique?
Yeah, so Stanislavski deals with given circumstances, you know, breaking down a scene into like bits, and then analyzing exactly what is there in the script. Like I was saying, I like to stick with the script and what the characters have said about themselves or somebody else has said about the character. That technique, is Stanislavski's. He has come up with the four whys, where, what, who said, like things like that. So he came up with the technique and he is a genius. And so I love studying his work as well. There is Stella Adler, who came up with her own technique, you know. So Stanislavski's technique was that. Stella Adler's technique was also like, it had been like everybody's borrowed from each other, but that is also really beautiful. And so right now I'm like Bruce Lee said, don't have one form, right? Don't have one technique, right? So I'm absorbing from everywhere for now. That's what I'm doing. So yeah,
Right. Yeah. So where does method acting fit in all of this? Is it part of a particular technique, or does it come
yeah.
under all of?
Method was Stanislavski. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Do you think that's a good way to bring out performance, to like live and breathe a character? Do you think that's
I
a good idea, or I mean, it could be very emotionally draining, right? Like to be just like in
Yes,
that mindset all the time.
yes. So I feel, personally, if you ask me, I would, like I said, start with the script. If the script leads me there to that process, I would adopt that. But if the script leads me to another technique, I know I have all these tools at my disposal that I just named. I have all these
Yeah.
ways of working, these permutations and combinations. So I'm aware that, if at all there is something that requires me to be in that state to achieve that kind of a shape I have in my mind, but not yet, I can't really physically perform that. I would try to, stay in that, you know. So if something leads me towards it, yes, I think it is a good idea. But if it affects you mentally, then it is a good idea to just, stop altogether and switch to another technique, which might be of more use to you. Because at the end of the day, you should function, properly as an actor. I feel, which
Yeah.
means where it is equally important to cut off from what you are doing and feel okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Okay, so speaking of some of your projects, you did a film called The Song We Sang,
Right.
and it's doing really well at film festivals. I haven't had the opportunity to see it, but I want to see it. So if it's on any streaming service, or it's going to be on any of the upcoming film festivals,
Yes.
list,
In
then I
fact,
would
it's going
like
to
to.
play at Indian Film Festival of LA, IFLA. Yeah, so it's going to
Great.
be playing there very soon. So I'm going to
Wh-
keep you posted about that. Yeah,
Yeah, when is it coming out? I'll make a note of it. So do you
I
have?
will let you know.
Okay, yeah, you can let me know later on.
Yeah,
Don't worry.
right.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, you're receiving a lot of praise for that performance. How did that project come to be?
So thank you so much. The project and how it happened was so exciting because I got a call directly from the production house, and they wanted me to test me for a part, and I wasn't sure of the production house. But when I read the script, I was smitten. They tested me for another part, and then they tested me for the part that I was to play, but they tested me around 10 times. And each time a
Wow.
different instruction was offered to me. Each time. Okay, now can you try it like this? Now can you try this? Oh, now we're switching your character. Now would you like to try that? I was so in love with the script by that point that I was happy to try for any other part that they would want me for. There were only two main parts. So I was like, yeah, I'm your actor now. Now I am in love with the script. I really don't care. Now do what you like. So heart and heart, I already knew I was in love with it. So when they started, they auditioned me for it, and they kind of had finalized me. They came to meet me, and we had a word. And I loved the way the team was. The team was so invested. Everybody, like if I remember, like even even the producer, the editor, and everybody, during one of our shoots where we were performing Garba, they were one of the extras. Like they were present, physically present. So can you imagine a team like that where nobody has any ego, everybody wants to give it their best, and everybody knows what it takes to make a film? and they're like one well-oiled machine. And I was so proud to be a part of something like that. So basically we did a bunch of rehearsals, and the rehearsals would be so strange because we were asked to come a few days before the shoot to Ahmedabad, and we were made to watch films. They're like, today your homework is to watch this film. Okay, today today your homework is to rehearse in the library and assume it's not a library, and you're here, and so very beautiful instructions that would help me build a world, or help my co-actor build a world, were given to us. And I think that was what was beautiful about the journey. We were being fed these little words, these little films along the way, that helped shape what we've made, or what we've come up with, which was really exciting.
Yeah, yeah, that's a very unique approach. It seems to me as if like almost they were like building this journey leading up to that point where by the time they start rolling, you already have, so many things you could, you know, tap into. Like, you have all these
Yeah,
references, all this preparation, which means that okay, even if the scene doesn't go, you can quickly reset and try something else. And
yeah,
I find that great about actors who could do that in a snap. I'm like, okay, can you do it this way? Because sometimes they rehearse so crazy of like doing a scene in a particular way, but then they are able to snap out of it on set, like when you are rolling the cameras. And yeah, I've worked with a few actors that way. I made a film in India called The Doorbell. It's an office romance that takes
right.
a dark turn. And
Okay.
yeah, so I had an experience like that where, of course, we had this huge conference table and zero extras. I'm like, okay, that frame would look bad. Like if it seems like an empty frame.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
what do we do? So once this was
yeah.
supposed to be shot on fourth day, so 3 days constant. I just reached out to my friends. I'm like, hey, can you come to this office space that we have rented for shoot and come wear formals, and like I'll get you a biryani and samosas and everything. I'll take care of you on set. You just show up. I need
Yeah,
people to be
yeah.
on set. And I think almost like 10, 12 people showed up, all of my friends. And it
Wow.
was just fun. And they were so invested after they got there. I just wanted them to just do normal stuff like typing something on computer or making notes.
Yeah,
But then
yeah,
they,
yeah.
after doing two or three rehearsal shots, they kind of got the hang of it, of what's happening, and then they came up with their own things कि अच्छा सर मैं
Wow.
ऐसे करूँ क्या, कि मतलब मैं ये लाइन बोलूँ, ये ऑडियो मेरे पे है कि नहीं है. Like, no,
Right,
you
right.
do anything you want. And so they really then like
Huh.
immerse
That's
themselves in the.
amazing. But isn't
Yeah,
that beautiful that you work together as a team?
amazing. Yeah. And
Yeah,
so many times, like sound guys, when I feel like okay, this frame also looks empty, so we need to populate the frame, so have some people in the corner talking and
yeah.
walking. And so yeah, the writer, like the one who wrote the short story and then I turned into a screenplay, she's there in the frame sitting and having something in cafe. I called up some of my other friends, so it was just fun. And
Yeah.
it was such a great time. It was so hard because I was producing and directing, so I was on my feet 13 hours a day, like making
Oh
sure
my God.
everything goes well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't remember the struggle. All I have is good memories. So
That's all that matters.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so talking of another project that you have done, you made your web series debut with Cold Lassi and Chicken Masala,
Yes.
and that's
Yes.
with Alt Balaji, correct?
Yeah. That is with Alt Balaji.
and
Yes.
and you're working with Rajiv Khandelwal. So talk to me about that universe, like all Balaji, Rajiv
Yeah,
Khandelwal,
yeah,
web
yeah.
series. How does all that, like, is that a different experience than, let's say, working on a short film or theater? I'm sure, I mean, it's a different experience, but what things stand out to you?
So I thought it was a different universe altogether, as you correctly put it. And I felt that the production house was hands on. And I felt that it was, although Alt Balaji was producing the main thing, there was another production house that was involved in handling, things, logistics, and all of that. So it was very interesting to see how I worked with Pradeep Sarkar. So he's the director of Parinita. So it was very interesting because I remember going for my first reading, and he was instructing actors to read in a certain way. And I thought that was very peculiar and very interesting. And I asked him about it. He said, "You come on set, and then I'll tell you the answer to this question." So he was very playful in that sense, and he was also very relaxed. So that was very interesting to see that like all these years of experience made him so relaxed on set. And I realized that say even Rajiv Khandelwal, we had like this family scene together. He was playing my brother, and where my husband is somebody who we think has done me wrong, sort of a thing. So there's a family discussion going on. So I loved how comfortable he was with the space. One thing that really inspired me was that he knew which shots were being taken, how he would have to be in that setup. He was also very comfortable navigating the set, which was obviously years of experience, because he didn't want to go back to his vanity like other actors did. He's like, cool, I'll chill here, like. So I liked his demeanor, and that's something that I would like to carry, and how comfortable he made everybody feel, which was really really nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard horror stories in Hollywood where actors say that they don't like when people look at them in the eye, and so you have to walk like, I don't know. I've heard from certain film professors that okay, this person is like this on the set, and I've never met someone who has said that, but I'm guessing like yeah, might be some truth to
No,
that.
there are people who do that on set, but I have really been lucky to also have those people around on set who are so warm, and I'm grateful. I'm genuinely grateful, because that's how I would like to be, and that's how I know I would treat somebody else on set. So I mean, it's a blessing to know which direction you'd want to go in, and yeah,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
that.
Well, I do wonder though, like, why don't people like, why do some actors don't like other people looking them in the eye? I mean, it's a normal thing.
Yeah, I think it is a normal thing, but I also think that when people, this is what I've understood, when people actually make eye contact with somebody else, they fear that other person will start a conversation. And sometimes the actor might be preparing for something, to go
Oh,
into a
okay.
scene, okay, and might want their space. Or sometimes that the actor just might not be in a mood for a conversation. And more often than not, if it's an actor, I've noticed that they probably just dread a conversation. But I don't understand it. That's not saying that I'm in favor of such behavior, but I'm just this is just me trying to think from their perspective.
Yeah, yeah. No, I remember like Christian Bale has received criticism for this famous outburst, I think, on the set of Terminator Genesis, I think, where he was preparing for a scene, a very intense scene, and then like some sound guy or some light guy interrupted him, and he lost his train of thought, this preparation that he had done, and he snapped. And sort of media kind of, back he received a lot of media backlash that hey, just because you're
Yeah.
a star doesn't mean you could treat people poorly. And he apologized and said that yeah, it was a really intense scene and I was really trying to do it a certain way, but someone kept
Mm,
interrupting me, and he had worked very hard to get it done properly.
mm,
So yeah, I mean, there could be so many reasons, but
yeah,
yeah, I it's
there could be so
understandable.
many.
Like yeah, actors want to sort of sometimes that blur their surroundings in the way that when they're in that flow, in that zone, they don't want to be disturbed, which is
Yeah,
understandable. uh,
yeah.
all right. Okay. So my last question to you then is, what are some of the exciting projects that you're working on, and what can the viewers expect from you going ahead?
Okay. So basically, there are two projects that I'm working on that are really, really exciting that I am not allowed to talk about because of contract
That's
reasons.
okay.
And yeah, but I'm also looking forward to, when we go on the floor. Some of it has already been shot and all of that. So yeah, that's about it. And I'm looking forward to it. And all I can say is that one is a web series. Yeah.
And the other, is it a
The
feature
other,
film or?
yeah, the other is a feature, but it has me in a very different light, you know. So it's a bit difficult to talk about, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, of course, you don't need to mention any details. But yeah, that's exciting. Yeah, I'll be certainly on the lookout for that, and certainly looking forward to the song we sang. More so because it's shot in Ahmedabad and it has Garba, so now it has got me even more excited. Because I wouldn't mind being
Right,
an extra and doing Garba. I mean, it's just like being a Gujarati that's ingrained in me. So
right.
yeah, it's that.
Such
But
a
yeah,
fun
yeah.
feeling.
So if I have to do a project in India, would you like to be a part of it? Assuming you like the script and everything else is taken care of. But if I do offer you something, this is
Absolutely.
on record, by the way. So, so
Absolutely.
okay, yeah. I think we spoke
Yeah.
something about it, right? Like when we
No,
last
we had
met.
spoken.
Yeah,
I
I
think,
was
yeah.
I was still a bit unstructured in terms of like what the final idea should be. I had like bunch of things floating around in my head, but yeah, now it's much more concrete. Like the pandemic has given me a lot of time to finalize things. So yeah,
Yeah.
I can certainly see bunch of
Let's bounce
stories.
ideas off each other. Yeah, that'd
Yeah,
be nice.
I'm certainly sending you one screenplay for my upcoming short film to just get your opinion. It's a really short, like 8 pages, 10 pages sort
Yeah,
of thing. It's a short film, so but yeah, I would like to get your opinion on it, and then yeah, let's just hoping that
absolutely.
one day we could collaborate, and then I get to mold you as an actor by creating this universe, this scenarios that okay,
Oh,
Serena,
that'd be
think
amazing.
this. I'll tell you, like, think a drop of water is on your back and it's slowly going down, and then instead
Yeah.
of saying that now you have to serve pasta, I would say now you are serving dhokla or something. I don't know. That
That
might be
works.
bad, but we'll see.
We'll see.
uh, but
Awesome.
yeah, so thank you so much for being part of this conversation. I really loved talking to you and learning so much from your experiences, and yeah, just
Thank
to
you so
see
much.
that how far you have come, and I'm glad that I could call you my friend and bounce off ideas with you. And yeah, it's great fun for me to see that okay, you are like charting your journey and like leveling up with each project. So wishing you all the luck for your projects, and
Thank you so much.
yeah,
It means a lot to
maybe.
me, and I'm really happy to be here. Happy to see
Yeah,
you do so well as well. So I
thank you.
hope we both, continue
Yeah,
on our
yeah,
chosen
I
paths
think.
and we collaborate. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a better idea would be to like do some project in New York rather than doing it in Mumbai, because I've done already a film in Mumbai. So it would be nice to kind
Yeah.
of put you, in this uh, universe, in this space, and then
That would be fun.
you'll have to develop an American accent. So you'll have to talk like this.
Oh, I would love
Uh,
that. I would love that.
I have a story that
That would be
I'm
fun.
working on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll share that with you all in good time. But yeah, that's it.
Sure.
So yeah, I'll
Thank you
put the
so much.
links of like all the work that you have done so people can check out, and yeah, you can shower you with
Sure.
praise and appreciation.
Thank you so much. It's really sweet of you. Thank you for having me here.